Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It's a pleasure seeing you here this evening. My name is Jane SCHOETTLE. I'm the lead programmer of TIFF's Special Presentation Program, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the world premiere screening of Causeway. The film is directed by Lila Neugebauer, written by Luke Goebel, Ottessa Moshfegh, and Elizabeth Sanders. I would like to thank our lead and major sponsors, Bell, RBC, Bulgari, and Visa for their continued support. Thank you to our major sponsors and supporters, the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, Telefilm Canada, and the City of Toronto for their continued support. This film is eligible for the People's Choice Award. Vote for your favorite films at tiff.net/vote. And we would like to thank Apple TV Plus for providing us with this film. Causeway is Lila Neugebauer's debut feature film, and it is a story about not only the wounds that soldiers retain from armed conflict, but those they carried with them going in. The film stars Jennifer Lawrence, an Oscar winner as Best Leading Actress for The Silver Linings Playbook. She's known for her roles within indie films like Winter's Bone to extravagant productions like The Hunger Games. Jennifer Lawrence has exhibited a range and a power arguably unmatched in her generation. Causeway also features Tyree Henry, a multiple Emmy nominee, exhibiting remarkable versatility with featured roles in films like If Beale Street Could Talk and Bullet Train to shows like Atlanta. We are delighted to have an opportunity to speak with our guests after the screening with a moderated conversation, but please join me in welcoming director Lila Neugebauer.
Thank you, Jane. Hi. Hello, good evening to the good people of Toronto. I have spent the last 15 years primarily as a theater director. This is my first feature. So there have been a long string of firsts in this experience, but this is also a first. This first encounter with all of you, the first public screening of Causeway, and I am finding myself very moved and humbled, to say the least. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Which is to say, thank you so much for joining us. As I said, I'm a big fan of this city. It takes a lot for a native New Yorker to like a city as much as I like Toronto, but I do. I've heard you are a film-loving people. And on behalf of everyone who made this film, thank you for choosing to spend your evening with us. Thank you again. I will endeavor to be brief so we can get to it, but there are some people to thank. First, I want to express my deepest gratitude to Cameron Bailey and to Jane and everyone at TIFF for having us here. I know I speak on behalf of everyone also involved with this movie that we are immensely honored to be invited and to be in the company of such distinguished filmmakers. I wish I could see the people I'm about to name. To our newest partners at Apple. Thank you for welcoming this film into your embrace with such heartfelt enthusiasm and inclusivity. Thank you for wanting to share this movie with the entire planet. To my long-standing partners at A24, wherever you are. Thank you for your conviction, your dedication, and your faith from the very beginning and through the heat waves and the flash floods and the hurricane and the evacuation from the hurricane, and then the assorted challenges of completing a film during a pandemic. Thank you for believing in me and for sticking with it. In a moment, I would like to point out some people in this room who made this film. So stand warned. But first, there are some people who couldn't join us that I'd like to acknowledge. Jack Fisk, a living legend in his own right, our production designer, our costume designer, Heidi Bivens, our composer, Alex Summers, my tireless, deeply insightful editors, Rob Frazen and Luke Johnson, the members of the cast who can't be with us, Jane Howdyshell, Stephen McKinley Henderson, Russell Harvard, Neil Huff, Will Pullen. Will Pullen. There are 3 writers on this project. One is here. The other 2 with us in spirit are Ottessa Moshfegh and Luke Goebel, who contributed beautifully to the development of this script and to this film. As most of you probably know, I had to learn it takes a lot of people to make a movie. We had an indefatigable crew who battled truly wild natural elements, as you've now heard, to complete this film, and I am thinking of them today with enduring gratitude. Okay, to the people in the room. We are also joined tonight by some people who made this film, and I would like to acknowledge them by name, and if you guys can bear it when I say your name, I don't know if you can see each other, I can't see you. I hope you'll stand, and if that's too much, maybe wave your hand. Jacob Jafke, I think you're here, and I think Sophia Lynn is here, two of our executive producers and line producers. Thank you for your resourcefulness, your dedication, your grit for getting us out of the way of that hurricane. Jeff Penman, co-producer and post maestro, for all of your commitment day in and day out. You know my gratitude. Grace Potter, associate producer, my right-hand woman, you got me through this, and I cannot wait to see the glorious films you are going to make, wherever you are. This project began about 3 years ago when I read a lyrical, patient, deeply felt screenplay by a woman named Elizabeth Sanders. She's from New Orleans, where this movie is set, and she drew directly from her heart. Elizabeth, thank you for the gift of this story and your trust. Diego García, director of photography, thank you for seeing, where are you? Thank you for seeing the meticulous poetry in the human face and in a swimming pool in equal measure. Thank you for taking care of these characters with such sensitivity and love. Justine Chiarocci, our fearless producer, thank you for your steadfast dedication, for getting your hands dirty, for taking my calls at inhumane hours of the day and night. And to the members of the cast we have with us here, we're getting to the end. Fred Weller and Sean Carvajal, thank you for taking the trip to NOLA. Fred, thanks for coming home and for the vivid specificity that you bring to your portraits in this film. Linda Emond, thank you for your far-reaching insight, your wisdom, and for your mettle, and for all the humanity and complexity you can imbue in a single line. Brian Tyree Henry, my old friend, you know we've known each other almost 20 years now. After all this time, I continue to marvel at your depth, magnetism, heart, and integrity as an actor and as a person. Thank you for bringing all of yourself to this, and thank you for having my back. I remain humbled and ecstatic that you wanted to do my first movie. And my Jen, my partner. My dream for any first-time filmmaker, for really any director on the planet, is that they would get to walk this road with you. You have redefined the notion of creative partnership for me. Thank you for the breathtaking privilege of watching your face on a monitor, for your unwavering commitment to this project across all obstacles, for your resilience, your producerial courage and tenacity, and for your friendship. We're getting close. Two more. The people of New Orleans, Louisiana, are a remarkably resilient set. I want to thank them for opening their homes and their streets to us and for enriching all of our lives with their pride of place. And lastly, I had the remarkable privilege while making this film of talking extensively with U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs medical professionals, U.S. Armed Forces service members, and veterans. They opened their lives to me. I am forever indebted for what they taught me. The film simply would not exist without them. And I want to thank them for their service. Thank you. It is now my very great pleasure to invite onto this stage my collaborators and my friends, Linda Emond, Brian Tyree Henry, and Jennifer Lawrence.
Thanks, everyone. We're really pleased that we have an opportunity to have a bit of a moderated conversation on stage with our guests to talk about this spectacular film. So please join me in welcoming some of our onstage guests now. We would like to introduce Justine Chiarocci, the producer. And so, here's Justine. Diego García, the director of photography. Director Lila Neugebauer. Yes, oh please. Yes, oh please sit. Please sit. Who played Gloria, actress Linda Emond. Brian Tyree Henry. And Jennifer Lawrence. Thank you all so much for taking some time with us. Congratulations on a remarkable film, one about trauma, healing, forgiveness, all of those things that I think everybody is thinking about these days. So I wanted to just start, because the themes are so profound and so moving, to maybe perhaps start talking to our cast about how they approached dealing with their characters in this particular way. Jennifer, perhaps I could start with you. Lindsay is desperate to redeploy. Is it so much that she is running back to the military, or is she running from what is behind her?
I identified, I mean, I felt something in my gut when I read this, that kind of immediate, we have to make this. And I identify with that feeling of trying to find your home and trying to find where you have purpose. And, you know, I left home when I was 14, and my relationship with home has always been complicated. And so that made me emotional.
Well, that very much is resonant for me, just again, re-seeing the ending of the film, because she is standing on the doorstep of a possible home. And that was profoundly moving for me. So thank you for that. Brian, also, your performance is remarkable in this film.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
This is a man that has suffered an almost unimaginable tragedy. So when he begins to start to be friends with Lindsay and invites her to move in, is this the first time you think that he's made a move to mitigating his loneliness?
Absolutely. I think that that's the great part about what we did making this movie with Lila and Jen, is that we got to go back and kind of peel back the layers of who these characters were and what their lives were. And so that scene where I actually invite someone into my home, which I believe is his first time ever doing that. You know, this man was born and raised in New Orleans, suffered the biggest tragedy of his life there, and is anchored there because of it. And I think that because of meeting someone like Lindsay, he decided to open up his home. And I guess I was sitting there for the first time realizing the emptiness of that space for the first time, the way you captured that, Lila. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, like, there's no one there for him. He's just never done that. And I think that trauma is like that, you know, like you are navigating this space that feels so lonely and so empty, and sometimes all you want is just an ear. And I will say that a lot of this movie reflected a lot of personal things going on. I've been navigating trauma for a long time in my life with the loss of my mother. Today is her birthday, which is crazy. So thank you. So watching this unfold in that way, in that human way, was a lot. It was like, I was like, oh right, there is this space that you sometimes feel can't be filled by anything except more grief, and then you realize that you look to your left or your right and there's somebody there, and you have to trust that. So I took a lot of things away from the viewing today that I didn't know before. I was like, oh, okay, right, like that's, there it is. But I think that that's how grief and trauma works. You know, we tend to think that trauma is a disability, and it's not. We tend to think that most of the things that we feel or things that we've lost become disabilities, and they're not. And so I think that was the greatest part of what I took away from today, is that we're not alone and that we can find home anywhere.
Cheers. Linda, your character also deals with her past hurts in a very particular way. Can you speak a little bit about how you approached playing her with both sympathy and empathy, which I felt from you?
Well, the through line for me in the movie is wounding and wounds. And I think that Lindsay's mom, Gloria is her name, it's never said in the movie, but that's who it is as wounded as anybody.
Yeah.
And I think that the stuff that it's caused in her life has made it impossible for her to be either a good mother or to be able to deal with what has happened to her daughter and her son. And I think unlike some people who, as you say, find a way through and find a way to make things work, she's never found a way to make it work. And I think, though, that seeing the movie and seeing it again today and being so moved by what happens at the end is the real genuine attempt at human connection that happens and that they get to. And I wish in another world for someone like Gloria to have had that opportunity or to have that, but she can't do it. She can't get as far as her daughter did. And it's kind of a beautiful thing to see that her daughter steps out of it, steps forward. I love that beautiful image of her going into the pool and the look on Jen's face, who was, I just have to say, I didn't work with Brian, even though I think he's an extraordinary actor.
They won't let us work together
but
for
I know,
some
some reason. But Jen was, now I'm going to get emotional, but she's just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful person and actress to work with, and it was very moving for me every day to be able to go on set and work with her.
Thanks. I think it's interesting that you say that Lindsay can do something which her mother can't do, which is also to go visit her brother in prison, which was a remarkable scene, and you feel the mother's inability to do that. But can you speak a little bit about that scene?
Yeah, I think what's most powerful about that scene and where it ends up in our movie is, her brother says, "I don't trust myself out there. I feel safer in here." And I think that's how Lindsay feels about Afghanistan. I think that's how she feels about having a role and something safe and a place to go. And I think that helps her to realize that she isn't locked up. She has a choice. And I think that scene being done in sign language is so powerful because there's so much subtext in this movie. It's so toxic sometimes, the what's said and what's not said. So for that loud and powerful scene to be done in complete silence, I think was entirely Lila's idea and was brilliant.
Lila, you spoke so much at the beginning, or so movingly, should I say, rather. It wasn't very much, no. No, but I mean, it's not at all. No. What I meant was it was very resonant to me, so it has volume, about the research that you did with veterans and veterans associations. And could you expand on that a little bit more? Because clearly that permeates through every scene of this film, every frame.
Sure. It was apparent to me from the outset that I would not and could not make this film without consulting meaningfully with medical experts in the field of traumatic brain injury. Am I too loud? I seem loud. No?
Be louder.
Okay, got it. Okay, great. Medical experts in the field of traumatic brain injury and people who had lived this experience. Right. So throughout the development of the script, in prep, while shooting, and deep into post, I had the remarkable opportunity to talk at great length and consult at great length with neurologists, occupational therapists, physiotherapists. Jen and I spent I think we both feel, a transformative day at the VA in New York. It's called New York Harbor Health. And we also spent a great deal of time with at the New Orleans VA. The physiotherapists and occupational therapists there equipped us with key insights that informed our physical work and the rehabilitation photography in the film. And we also had it just sounds so hyperbolic, but it was life-changing. The conversations that I have been able to have with veterans and U.S. Armed Forces service members, many who had incurred traumatic brain injury, but also others who were just willing to speak candidly about the challenges of coming home, and also what inspired them to deploy, and what their to enlist and deploy, and what their experiences were. And then I would also just add that while we were shooting, we always had those people with us, occupational therapists and physiotherapists. Actually, the 2 nurses in the hospital scenes, those are actual OTs from the New Orleans VA.
That's remarkable. I've often heard that coming home is as complicated and oftentimes require the same bravery as going to war. And this film really made me experience that. So your background is in theater, isn't it? Yeah. How do you make that transition?
Well, it's nice to be.
She's a teeny tiny genius.
Brilliantly. I'd say it transitioned brilliantly.
That's so nice.
Perhaps that's for another time. Okay.
Yeah, maybe. I would say the short version is that I would say the processes from a structural perspective of filmmaking and theater making are radically dissimilar. But one of the great joys of this experience was discovering how completely aligned the core creative impulses are. The storytelling impulse, the primacy of visual composition, the centrality of the conversation with the actors. That felt intuitive, and that was a joyful discovery.
The difference that I found so amazing and helpful was that in theater there's such a study on the words and on the language. It's the same words every night, and I've heard from people who have done theater, it's different every night. It feels different. But she's meticulous over the wording, which forces us to be meticulous of these character studies, and that we were all able to go so much deeper into this film because of her obsessive behavior towards language.
Text. And by the way, Jen is going to do stage after this. She hasn't told you all, but she's going to join us.
I'm not. It's not true. I would be terrible.
The genius of words, yeah. I'd like to ask you, Diego, had you ever shot in New Orleans before? Because it comes alive through your lens.
No, actually it was the first time for me being there while shooting the film. And it was a whole beautiful experience to get to know the city and try to capture the essence and the atmosphere for them, to...
I think you did that remarkably well, don't you? Yeah. I'm just working my way down the line here. And Justine, so can I ask what drew you to this project, or?
Oh man, it's hard to boil it down. Yeah. I think, for Jen and I think it had been a minute since Jen had been in such a stripped down internal mode. And so it was exciting to think about seeing Jen move in this space again, to do a true character piece, and obviously the variable of Lila coming in, which I think sealed the deal as soon as we met her. Sort of a no-brainer.
All right, that's, and I just wonder, given all the many themes that are through this movie, trauma, healing, veterans, etc., what would be the one thing that you would like people to take away, or the top 3? Yes, I'd like to ask you. Yeah.
I'm in a Q&A. I think I can say, first I would say your responses belong to you. You don't need me to tell you that. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Whether you're seeing another film or you're going to go have dinner or walk around. I guess, I hope that the film is an invitation to patience with ourselves and maybe with others whose life circumstances, challenges we may know nothing at all about. Maybe in that way an invitation to empathetic imagination.
I think that's a perfect way to take us out tonight, empathetic imagination. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for being with us and for providing us with this tremendous film.
Thank you
so much. Thank you all.